For those, and I'm trying to see my timer. I don't know where my time at. For those of you that did not know, I tried to do a video earlier, tried to do a live, and my live got cut off. And I just have a sneaky suspicion that it wasn't my device. I think the enemy was at work because he just didn't want me to get this out. So I am here to redo it or pick up where I left off at. Let me put in some disclaimers here. First of all, before Facebook takes me off, and we're going to see today if Facebook will take me off. That music was by Lecrae and Andy Mineo, and it was called Coming In Hot. So I wanted to put that disclaimer out there. Also, what's up, Thumb? I can see you, man. Yeah, I wanted to put that disclaimer out there. The other disclaimer that I want to put out there is that, as I said earlier today, I am going to be talking about some sensitive things, and I'm going to be talking about some communities, some people out there, the LGBTQ community. I'm going to be talking about white folks, and I'm going to be talking about brown people. And so I want to say, before I even get into this conversation, and I'll try to be as brief as possible, that I love all people. I don't have no hate, no malice, no animosity in my heart whatsoever. I don't care what color, what creed, what religion, none of that. I don't care what you are. However, this is some pertinent information that needs to come across to our people. So my job is to just put the truth out there, spit the truth out there, however you want to say it. And so this is what this is all about. So I want to pick back up where I left off at. And I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there before we go, because you're going to hear some things that's going to sound a bit sensitive. And I just don't want you to think that I'm picking on nobody, because I'm not picking on nobody. So where we left off, I was talking about the 13th Amendment, and I was saying that Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, before Kamala became the vice president, and while Cory Booker was running for president, they both had seats in the Senate. And so with that, I wanted to bring to your attention is that some of the things that people run on is what they're going to do for us. And so I made mention of those two because they are considered to be of African-American descent. So they consider to be black people. Although they may not be full black people, they are still considered to be black people. And so one of the things we have to do to hold people like that accountable, and I'm saying that for any person of color that's running for office, is we need them to reinterpret what the Constitution, especially as it relates to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, is, what it says about black people. And so let me go back and reiterate what I said earlier today. And that is that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment was never designed. It was never made. It was never written for anybody outside of black people. And I'll tell you why. It was because black people were the ones that were disinherited, disenfranchised, that was at the margins, that was being treated unjustly. That's the reason for those amendments. The original Constitution had no regard for the African-American race, better known as black people. We were not even considered to be people. OK, so when they wrote that Constitution initially, it was written excluding us. I want to be clear about that, because if you don't understand that, as we navigate through life in the moment that we live in right now, you will start to wonder, well, what happened to us? And I'm going to share with you what happened to us. But I want you to understand why it was put there in the first place. There was never a 12th, 13th, and 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. That came as a result of, number one, citizenship. That was the 13th Amendment. That was the 14th Amendment. The 13th Amendment was the abolition of slavery. And the 15th Amendment was that for voting rights. Okay, now when you think about it, has white folks ever been put in slavery? No. So there was never a need for emancipation and proclamation. Never. Was there ever an issue with white people as it relates to citizenship? Never an issue. Was there ever an issue with citizenship as it relates to white women? Was there ever an issue with citizenship as it relates to LBQT, whatever it is? That stuff. I know we bringing it current, but I'm trying to show you because all those things were addendums to continue to reinterpret what the 14th Amendment was, or what it is, or what it should be. But if we go back to the original design of it, it didn't have all these things that we got in place now for brown people, the Asian people, and all that stuff, because they were not in trouble. They didn't come out of slavery. It was written for us. When we look at what was going on in Philadelphia in the 1700s, that was all about I'm talking about black skinned people that you didn't have no doubt when you saw them that they were black. If you are of brown descent and you can pass for white, because see, some Hispanics and Latin people, depending on what they want, they play both ends to the middle. And so some Hispanics look white. I mean, completely white. And then some of them look black. So the ones that look black, they can't pass for being white. But the ones that are pure Hispanics, but they look white, they can play both ends to the middle. But if you was back in those days, you still could get a pass because you didn't look like you was mixed with anything. And so I just want to be clear with that piece. And so we talking about the 13th Amendment. And the 13th Amendment is to abolish slavery completely. That was the crux of that particular amendment from the Constitution. Now, what happened was once they abolished it, okay, they said, well, listen, you know, we gotta do better about people, so to speak. Somewhere in there, their unconscionable heart was pricked. And so they said, okay, we will abolish slavery. But here's the deal. Once we abolish slavery, what we going to do with all these Negroes that's walking around? So then they had something that come out called Vagrancy Laws. And so what Vagrancy Laws said was it's okay for the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. However, if we see them back, if we see them loitering, if we see them wandering around, if we see them drunkenness, if we see them homeless, if we see them without a job, if we start to see them like that, then we have the rights to, they didn't call it enslaved, but that's what it felt like, because then they could take you into custody and make you do whatever they wanted you to do. Hey, Janet. And so when we look at that, you say, okay, well, were they free? No, they weren't free. And when you look at how we are today, our system is set up today, our system is set up the same way. If you look at people out here right now, black people, okay, they have some stuff going on in New York, and I forget what is frisk and search and frisk or something like that. It was some kind of law that was real heavy that they was doing in New York, but it was based upon what I viewed. So if I saw you and you didn't look right, I had the right to approach you and to ask you what you're doing. Again, a vagrancy law, loitering or wandering. And we do that a lot. You know, black folks will sit out in front of in their yard and they ain't doing it. They look like they might be homeless a lot of times. They look like they might be jobless a lot of times. So back in those days, that was called vagrancy. So like a vagabond. Okay. So if that happened to you and those that represented some form of government, if they saw that, even though the 13th Amendment was in place, they could still come up to you And basically it was like an arrest, although prison systems was not established back then. It was like an arrest. They could still take you into custody and then put you back out into the fields to work. See, so that was a way to get, especially in the South, that was a way to get around the 13th Amendment. Okay. So now, we look at the 13th, and some of that mirrors what we got going on today. And then let's move into the 14th Amendment, because the 14th Amendment was the real crux of where we are today. And I mentioned on my earlier video that I got knocked off, and I don't know because I said Kamala's name or Barack's name or what it was, but I said that Barack Obama really supported the 14th Amendment. And I'll tell you why, or how he supported the 14th Amendment. See, although the 14th Amendment was established for black people, let's be clear about that. It was established for black people. We came over here against our will. We came over here off ships. We were not considered as humans. We were considered 3/5 of a being. So I'm gonna get into that in a few minutes. So we didn't have what was called citizenship, right? And so with that, they had to make amends to the Constitution. So they put in the 14th Amendment, which says that, no, we have to give these people citizenship. Now let's go forward to where we are right now. So Barack Obama, he really rode a wave on this right here. But the way he did it, and I said to y'all, everybody benefits from the 14th Amendment except black people. Now watch this. If you look at the LGBTQ community, and again, like I said, my disclaimer, I'm not knocking anybody, whether you gay, lesbian, whatever your sexual orientation or preference is, I'm not knocking that. What I am saying is that you are riding the 14th Amendment wave like nobody's business. Okay. And people like our former president, Barack Obama, is behind you, because what he said was, one thing I'm going to do, I am going to be the president for all people. Now, you'd have to go back, because I don't want to repeat the part that I already said in my live, but in Acts, the 17th chapter and verse number 7, it talks about Caesar. Let me just read it real quick. And the latter part of that, it says that these all do contrary to the decrees of Caesar, saying there is another king, one Jesus. Now, okay, so to do contrary to the decrees, which would be the president's policies, or it would be the Constitution's policies, or it would be the amendment. So in other words, Jesus now comes against, or he goes against that. And they're saying there's another king that is kicking up some dust. And he's saying that, wait a minute, I'm pushing back against those things. So now let's look at Barack. What Barack did was, and I know in the word of God, it talks about Adam and Eve. Okay. Now, once again, I'm just putting this stuff out here the way that it is in the Bible, unadulterated. So the Bible talks about a man and a woman. All right. It does not advocate, it talks about, but it does not advocate Adam and Steve. All right. Y'all with me? It does not advocate that. It advocates Adam and Eve. However, under the 14th Amendment, the LGBTQ RSTUVWXYZ community, they said, y'all are violating our rights. And we had one of African descent known as President Barack Obama, formerly. What he said was, no, we got to do something about this. So now the amendment is being reinterpreted. That's the reason why I said earlier that we have two constitutions. It was the original Constitution, then the second Constitution that brought along the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment. It restructured. But then even though it restructured originally for black people, and I want to be very clear and emphatic because that was what the original was for. But what happened was as things progressed, then these other people, they rode the coattail and they benefit. Now watch this. Black folks still don't benefit behind the 14th Amendment. They do not benefit behind that. The LGBTQ community benefits from it. The Asian community benefits from it. The brown community benefits from it. All other communities benefit from the 14th Amendment except black people who it was originally made for. And then you have one, President Barack Obama, who I said that I disagree with, I take issue with, I'm not a fan of, and I got criticized. But I said to y'all, I said, wait a minute, before you criticize me, go back and do your homework, do some empirical data. Because when you go back and you look at his 8-year run, in his 8-year run, he was a great president for the 14th Amendment for all. He was a president for all people. But when it comes down to black people, there's a question mark. I take issue with that. I'm going to tell you why. When the stuff happened in Florida with the Zimmerman, and you can just go back and you look at how this is being carried on, even with the Biden administration and all that. When you look at all that stuff, Obama never said nothing. Now, where was the 14th Amendment and where was due process? Where was due process as it relates to black people being gunned down in the street for no apparent reason, no good reason? And those that were in power, they did not stand up for what was right. And so that's the reason why I said, even when you look at Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, when they get in there and they wave their flag talking about vote for me, vote for me. But well, okay, if I do vote for you, will you bring back or make this alive again, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment as it relates to African American people, the way that it was originally designed? Will you do that? And so here we are, and you got all these other communities that are momentatized. If that's a word, this momentum, they got all kind of momentum behind this 14th Amendment. Let me tell y'all something. You really got to hear me and you really got to take note, because everything now, I'm telling you, the bedrock of where this country is going is hinged upon the 14th Amendment. I'm going to tell you why. Everybody now is saying that I want a say. And I want to be heard, and I feel that I'm right. And nobody is checking with the word of God. That's the reason why I said in the scripture here in Acts 17:7, it says you got Caesar and Jesus, this new king, he's coming against. He's coming against Caesar. So now what is Caesar? Caesar is all these other authorities, all these other policies, these structures, and these systems that are being put in place. So when you look at things like these communities, like the gay and lesbian community, and I'm not knocking, once again, this is not hater mail. What I'm saying though is that they are raising them up. If you look at what happened with the Asians, okay, just recently we had the Asians was getting beat on, right? Now, y'all, you think about it. Go back and do the history on it, right? Do the research on it. They corrected that real quick. Here's the reason why they corrected that real quick. And this is a difference between Korean nations, Chinese nations, and all the other ones. Everybody has a place that they can go back to. Everybody got a place they can go back to. The only ones ain't got no place that they can go back, say, this was my home, and you can call big brother. Because I'm going to tell you right now, them Chinese, when they heard about what was going on with their people over here in America, they said, let it happen again. Let it happen again. Oh, I'm coming to see somebody. I'm coming to see somebody. So y'all see all that got squashed. But now, all these Negroes, all these black people getting gunned down in the street, you don't hear nobody out of Africa. There ain't nobody out of Africa raising up raising up a standard and saying, do it again. Or or touch them if you want to. And watch what happens. That ain't happening. You know why? Because when they stripped us out of Africa, they stripped everything. See, we ain't got Big Brother to go back to. We ain't got that. Not only did they do that, they stripped the power out of Africa. But you take places like China. China is a powerhouse now. Not only is China a powerhouse, y'all see that the new administration, they got right back into bed with China. So all they gonna do is make a phone call. What's this I hear going on with, people, messing with our folks over there? Handle that. But black folks can get killed in the street all day long and ain't nothing gonna happen about it. Why? Because you were never considered people. And so the 14th Amendment deals with citizenship. So here's what the 14th Amendment says. Y'all got me all excited now. It was an amendment for blacks regarding citizenship, stating that if you were born or naturalized in the United States, you are a citizen and not property or slave. Now, does that sound like white folks? Does that sound like Asian people? Does that sound like Japanese people? Does that sound like brown people? I'm not saying that they didn't have a hard way to go. I'm not saying that the Jews didn't have the Holocaust. I am not minimizing that. I'm not saying that. I am saying, though, that there was an experience with black people that ain't nobody experienced before. Nobody has experienced it before. And so they talk about, y'all always complaining. Y'all always this and y'all always that. Yeah. But see, ain't nobody ever. You can't go back and find it in the archives. You can't go back maybe in antiquity. When you go way back pre-Bible day, you might be able to see it then. But I'm talking about as far as back as we know. As we can document, you've never seen the treatment like you do to black people. So I'm not nullifying or taking away a struggle of Europeans or Jews or Asians or Hispanics. I'm not taking that away from none of them. But I will say this, ain't nobody been treated like black people. Ain't nobody been stolen from their country, brought over here as slaves and went through what they went through. Now watch this here. When you look at that right here, it's an issue of citizenship. No, none of that sound like black people. Like white folks or none of that stuff, right? So the 14th Amendment couldn't have been talking about them. That's my point. The 14th Amendment could not have been talking about all these other people, all these other people out here that are benefiting. Couldn't have been talking about them. So what happened was, and as we navigate through this, we will see evolution of the 14th Amendment. So it starts off one way, but that one way everybody else want to catch the train, catch the wave, and he says, no, because what about me? Now check this out. When we was enslaved, and I'm getting ready to say a little something about white women. When we was enslaved, wasn't white women there with white men? Well, now I want to be diplomatic and I want to use decorum here because I don't want nobody to think I'm putting out hate mail or that I don't like white women. I'm against the white race. I am not. All I'm trying to do is show you something. But wasn't when we was being enslaved and when we was being whipped and when we was being dipped in hot water, when we was being hung on trees and all that stuff, and they was coming out with their Kool-Aid and lunch buckets with their kids and all that stuff, wasn't white women there? Well, what did they stop any of that? Now, that was what the 14th Amendment was about. It was about black people. So now all of a sudden, okay, now we come current and we now want to embrace this feminist movement. Okay, now, the feminist movement was a movement designed for white women to have equal rights, to have same pay, all that stuff as men, predominantly white men. They got tired of it. But you wasn't saying nothing when black folks was being hung on trees, when black folks was out there in the field. It was okay. When they was working inside master's house, it was okay. See, didn't nobody say nothing about it then. But then when the feminist movement came and they said, no, wait a minute, we feel that we should get the same thing as the white man gets. Now there's Houston, we got a problem. Now we got a problem. So now they had to revamp the 14th Amendment to accommodate them. Then you had the womanist movement. When the womanist movement came about, it incorporated some of the feminist movement ideologies because they wanted rights and all that stuff. But what the womanist movement suggests was that no, but we got to incorporate race, because what the feminist movement did, it touched on rights, but it didn't touch on black rights. So the womanist movement, when they came on, which was started by a black woman, so when that came on, said, wait a minute now, I understand the feminist side of it, but the womanist side of it, we want to talk about our people, our culture, our existential plight. See what I'm saying? So now there's a difference. And I ain't even talking about, when I say the 14th Amendment, I'm not really even talking about womanists, because the womanists latched on to a black movement. Once again, my disclaimer, I am not sending out hate mail. I don't dislike nobody. None of that kind of stuff. None of that. I'm just trying to tell you like it T.I. is. And the reason why I am is because the same momentum that is going on with all this stuff right now is the momentum that's going to carry us into some other stuff. And if we don't understand this 14th Amendment, we're going to be left behind. I don't know if y'all heard in my the very last live that I did, I talked about, and I said that if we had our own media, because black folks represented 35 thousandths of 1% of all media, 35 thousandths of 1% of all media. That's how much we control, which equals nothing. And so when I get on here and I'm worried about Facebook and YouTube and all these other white owned platforms taking me off, if we had our own media, if we had our own voices out there, owned them, we wouldn't have to worry about this. Now, I know y'all ain't used to hearing this kind of stuff from a preacher. I know y'all ain't used to hearing about it. But Jesus, he stood up to the culture. The culture. In the word of God, you will see where Jesus stood up to the culture. So why ain't the preachers preaching about it? See now, oh, don't mess with that. Don't touch that. Just preach Jesus. Just be Barthian. I'll talk to y'all about Barthian another time. Barthian, he was a Eurocentric theologian that said just preach Jesus. And I don't know how many of our African American Western churches have just latched on to that whole thing to where you just denounce what's going on in your culture, and you saying, all right, I'm just going to preach Jesus, because we preach Jesus, everything is going to be all right. And I'm not saying just if you preach Jesus, everything won't be all right. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that Jesus was well-rounded. His message was well-rounded. And so in other words, he came and he fed the hungry. He healed the sick. He addressed those that was brokenhearted, those who was at the margins, those that was disinherited, those that were poor. That was a central theme for his ministry. And so if that is being the case, then why is it that we ain't preaching it? Got me off my thing here. All right. So it was the 14th Amendment. It was that stating that you had to be, if you were born or naturalized in the U.S., you are a citizen. The amendment was about citizenship. So that didn't include white people and all those other folks, and not property or slave. And the reason why is because when they wrote the Constitution, we was considered to be property. We was considered to be slaves. We didn't count. We were 3/5 of a human being. 3/5, if you know anything about math, you convert that into a percentage, that is 60%. So if you 60% human, where's your other 40% at? If you 60%, where's your other 40%? I mean, do you take 40% out of you and put it on the plantation? Take 40% out of you, put it back on Africa? Where's the other 40%? 2/5 of you somewhere else. How in the world do you establish a constitution or an ideology saying that we 3/5 of people? And here was the deal with that. And I said earlier, I hate that I got cut off because I got to piece everything back together. But I said earlier, the reason why they considered us to be 3/5 of a person, it wasn't for our benefit. It wasn't for us to be counted. It was to count from a population standpoint, and it was for those that was trying to run for office to be able to get more votes, hence be able to have the electoral voting system on their side and all that other stuff. So if you count enough of 3/5 Negroes, then you can win a vote. You can win a seat. It wasn't nothing for us. Don't be stupid, people. Don't be stupid. So that had nothing to do with us. So 3/5 of us, right? You know, how you gonna look at me? And then everybody else want to ride the wave. But that wasn't what it was for. It was for us. And that was what was in the 14th amendment. It was us being 3/5 of a people. Just think about that. We're still dealing with that. I may not be able to finish this. So it debunked that 3/5 rule. And then the 2/5 talk about we was somewhere else. Okay, so that is the 14th Amendment, and the 14th Amendment, I'll wrap this up with the 15th, and the 14th Amendment also dealt with, when we bring it current, the segregation of schools. That was Brown versus Board of Education. Remember that? Okay, now that was to bring the 14th Amendment current. I'm not saying that we didn't benefit from it. In some ways, I think that we would have had our own. Maybe they should have kept segregation, because if they would have kept segregation and we would have had our own stuff and they have their own stuff, then maybe we would be a powerhouse. Maybe we would have our own. As I said earlier, black folks, they bounce money. Let me go back to it. Jews, the Jewish community, they bounce money 17 to 18 times within their community before it goes outside. What I mean by that is that the Jewish people, they spend their money with businesses amongst themselves. That means that they own banks, they own car lots, they own everything. And they spend their money amongst themselves 17 to 18 times before it goes outside of the Jewish community. The Arabs, they spend their money 14 to 16 times, something like that. And those are all those ones when you go into those communities where we live at, they got their businesses set up in communities where we live at. They making all their money off of us. We spending all that money. We spending all our money with them. They getting rich off of us, and none of us got no businesses in those communities. The Koreans, you go in there, and the Chinese folks, you go in there to all the hair shops, and the black women is spending, billions of dollars on hair products. And they got that stuff, those businesses set up in our communities. White folks, they bounce money 8 to 12 times amongst themselves before it goes outside. Y'all know white folks own everything. And the reason being is because just sheer population, sheer volume. So they can bounce their money 8 to 12 times, where Jews do theirs 17 to 18 times, and they still may end up with more because it's more people. It's more population. So they do it 8 to 12 times. Hispanics, they spend money 6 to 7 times with their own people. They own people before it goes outside. Black people, listen to me. Black people spend money amongst themselves 0 times. 0 times. It means that every time you get money, every time you get paid, you don't celebrate your people. You know why you don't celebrate your people? Because your people don't own nothing. The first thing that you got, if you want to eat, you got to go to the white man or another man. If you want to get a car, you got to go to them. If you want to build a house, you got to go to them. If you want to go to the grocery store, you got to go to them. You ain't got nothing on your own to go to. Nothing. Nothing. So we circulate money 0%. 0% amongst ourselves. Now you need to take a belt and whoop yourself. That's what we need to do. Take a belt and spank your own tail. And we sit around here and we complain and talk about this and that and the other and all this, but we doing a lot to ourselves. We need to come together. I've said it before. We need to come together, get our own banks and this, that, and the other. Our own food sources and all that. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is the 15th Amendment. The 15th Amendment was the right to vote. And it was regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. And I'll get into that some other day. I've said enough, y'all. I hope that this information has been helpful to you. And again, I am not, I am not, my disclaimer out there. This is for, educational and entertainment purposes only. Okay. I am not trying to tell you one way or another how to live. None of that. I'm just putting some information out here for your entertainment, Take it how you will. All right, y'all, be blessed. I'm out. And again, this is Face to Face. Let's talk. I'm out. Be blessed.